Welcome, Mindsetters, to this grade 12 session of Learn Extra. We're going to be doing a little bit of Maths Lit. So, Peter, tell us what's going to be happening today.
All right, well, today, folk, we at a session where we're starting to do a lot of revision work, and we thought because your exams are coming up, that would be a good thing to do. So this week, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through the Department of Education's 2008 Paper 1. And next week, we're going to tackle Paper 2 type questions. But I thought I'd start with Paper 1 because so many times people think, it's Paper 1, this is easy. But it's got some fundamental things in it that we've got to understand and got to be able to do. And so that's what we're going to do today.
Exactly. That sounds awesome. Like, revision, always best. So
I think so. Did you have a good week, Ty?
I had a really good week.
Really, hey? I did too. We got ourselves a little puppy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've called it Rolex because it's a watchdog. Okay, I'm going there. You talk to them.
Well, he goes there and I digest that joke. Yes. On that note, guys, make sure you get on the page, www.facebook.com/learnextra. Get chatting to me. Let me know if you're lost anywhere, if you need help. Guys, make sure, if you don't chat to us and let us know what's wrong, if you're lost anywhere, we can't help you because I can't get those questions to Peter and Peter can't answer them for you. So that just leaves you in a bad place. So guys, make sure you get on the page. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Peter. Peter, take it away.
Right, gentlemen, in every single Paper 1, we start off a Paper 1 with short little questions, okay? 1 mark here, 2 marks there, 3 marks there. But they're little isolated questions on different topics, okay? But the reason they're so important is they form the fundamentals of what's waiting for you in the Paper 2. Okay, and if you don't understand the basic concepts in Paper 1, there is no way you can even think about tackling that Paper 2 that's waiting for you a week later or a few days later. Okay, now, what I found over our years of experience and in marking the paper or having a look at the Paper 1 results is this, that so many students say, this paper's so easy, I don't have to really worry about it. And so they go ahead and they do the paper, but they do it so flippantly because the questions can be so easy that they actually make careless mistakes. Yes, that's right, I'm talking about you, making careless mistakes. I want you to stop for a minute and think back on the last few tests you've written and think about how many marks you lost because of a silly error. How many marks you lost because you just lost concentration, just had a few seconds, and in doing so, you made a silly little error here or a silly little error there. You knew what to do, but you made those silly mistakes. And that's what I find happens a lot in Paper 1. And it's so frustrating when you're marking it and you're just saying, clearly this guy knows what he's doing, but he's just messing up with these mistakes. Okay, so I'm going to go through these. When you look at them, you might say, this is so basic. I'm not just doing these questions. I'm going to use these questions as a teaching tool as well. All right, so, and remember it's revision, so I am going to repeat quite a few things that I have said over the last few weeks. Question 1.1.1 in the 2008 final matric paper said the following. Write 20% as a common fraction in simplified form. Now, simplified form, okay, not just any form, but it must be simplified. What's a fraction? Well, we know what a fraction is, eh? It's something over something. Decimal fraction means that there's a comma somewhere. This is not decimal, this says common fraction. So I know I'm going to have something over something. Now, 20%. Whenever I hear the word percent, and it's not only in this question, it's every question we do from now. Every question we do in Paper 1, every question we do in Paper 2. When I see or hear the phrase percent or the word percent, I know it means out of 100. So, 20% means 20 out of 100. There it is, as a common fraction. But is it simplified? Because the question said, you don't just write it as a fraction, but you better do it in its simplified form. So that's what I've got to do. You'll notice it's for 2 marks. So I would presume that the examiner in 2008 said, you know what, let's give these guys 1 mark for doing 20 out of 100 and another mark for simplifying it. I know that I'm going to have to simplify that because it does say in simplified form. Now, if you had a number like 19 over 100, it would just say, write the following as a fraction. But because they've said a simplified form, it means, hey, you know what? I'm going to have to change this. It's not going to be as easy or straightforward as it looks out to be. Okay, and that just brings me to another thing. And I said I'm going to use this paper as a teaching tool. Always read the words carefully, and invariably, okay, normally, the examiners are helping you with the wording they're using. So they might say, find the answer to the following question rounded to 1 decimal place. Why are they saying that? Why would they say rounded to 1 decimal place? They'd only tell you that if the answer was going to be comma something, 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 something. So you know, before you even start that question, oh, I'm going to get a horrible long answer here with a lot of decimal digits. And the examiner said, rounded to 1. That's why I know that. So just by reading what the examiner is telling me, just by reading into the question, I'm getting little hints. This hint for this question said, and write it in its simplest form or in simplified form. So I knew that that question was not going to be straightforward. I knew I would have to do something with it. How do we write that in its simplest form? Again, it's a teaching tool, so we're using this to teach you. Guys, the best way to simplify any fraction is with the use of your calculator, because your calculator is not going to get it wrong. You might get it wrong, the calculator won't. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to write this up as we see it. I've got 20 over 100, so I'm going to push fraction button. 20 over 100. Okay. Now, watch what happens when I push equals. Push equals, and voila, there's my answer. 1 over 5. So I know that written in its simplified form is equal to 1 over 5. And my examiner comes along and says, Aish, what a clever boyki. 20 out of 100, he gets 1 mark. 1 out of 5, he gets the other mark. 2 out of 2. And I can sit back and say, yeah, fantastic. First question in the exam, I've got it right. You know what? I got 2 out of 150, which means, sure, I didn't get 0 for that exam. Okay. Now, write 136 over 200 as a percentage. Whoa. Okay. So we've got 136 over 200, and we want to write that as a percentage. In other words, what am I wanting to do? I wanted to get it to over 100. And there are 2 ways to do that. I could say, you know what, simply, how did I get 200 to being 100? Well, I divided it by 2. So what am I going to do with that 136? I'm also going to divide it by 2. And let's do that straight away. We're going to say, right, 136 divided by 2 equals 68. So I've got an answer now of 68 over 100. But remember, folk, always put our answers in simplified form. So how are we going to do that? Like I just showed you, we're going to say, okay, we got a fraction button, 68 over 100 equals 17 over 25. So my answer is 17 over 25. Okay, how easy is that? How else could we do that? Well, there's another way, hey? I could say 136 over 200, change that to a percentage, okay? So we're changing it to a percent. Incidentally, 17 over 625 is not my answer. I was changing it to a fraction. That's silly of me. Here I'm telling all my viewers, you know, people make silly mistakes in the exam paper 1, and what do? I make a silly mistake. What is 68 over 100? It is 68%. How do I change another way of changing 136 over 200 to a percent? Well, another thing I could do is I could actually say, okay, let's times that by 100 and see what happens. So with my calculator now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say, right, we've got fraction button 136 over 200. Multiply that by 100 and we land up with an answer, and there it is on our calculator, 68. So my answer again, 68%. Okay, 68%. I like this method, and the reason I like it, because you can use it in any percentage problem you have. Whenever you say percent times 100, because percentage is always 100. Remember that. Okay. Now, let's look at our next question. Simplify 120 to 150. So we're dealing with ratios. How do we simplify it? Again, folk, I'm going to use my calculator, because once again, my calculator is going to do the work for me. It's not going to make a mistake. And why not use the calculator? Your folks paid money for it, so use it. Here we go. 120 to 150. Now, the one problem I have with this calculation, where I had fractions, this over this, I cannot do that on my calculator, write this to this. It doesn't work. So what I'm going to do, when I've got a number to another number, I'm going to write it like this, get an answer like this, and put it back like that. Does that make sense? That looks quite cool. Like this, to that, get an answer back to that. What do I mean? Well, let's have a look. I got 120 to 150. I'm going to use it as a fraction. Say 120 over 150. It's going to simplify it for me and say 4 over 5. But I don't want it as 4 over 5. I'm going to write it as 4 is to 5. So we're going to write it as 4 is to 5. They never gave it to me like this. If they gave it to me like that, I could write my answer like this. But the question never came like that, so I can't write it like 4 over 5. That's the way I'm going to write it. But do you understand how helpful the calculator is? It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tool. During our ad break earlier on, in fact, just before the show, my producer was saying to me, you know, when I matriculated in 1975, we never had calculators. And that's absolutely true. I matriculated in 1985, which is still quite some. I don't think you were born then, Ty, were you?
No.
Not, eh? Okay.
I'd be a bit too old for the show.
You'd be too old for. All right, thanks, eh? Okay, so I matriculated in 1985, and when I matriculated, there was no such thing as a calculator in the school. Nothing. In fact, you didn't get calculators like these ones we're showing up on the screen anyway. These things just didn't exist. All that existed with our calculators, which we weren't allowed to use in school anyway, was this little part of the calculator. Can you see it? The bottom part. I can't draw on it, so I'm just going to show you here. That bottom part over here. That's all that existed. None of these funny, weird, and wonderful buttons, and no fraction button at all. But even if it had, we didn't use those calculators. In fact, I've got a little secret to tell you. When our producer matriculated in 1975, there were no computers in the school. I matriculated, like I said, in 1985. And in 1985, when I matriculated, they had computers had just come into the school that year. And we were like an experimental school. So they were bringing some computers in to have a look at it. But because I was in matric, I wasn't allowed to go into the computer room because it would interfere with my matric and with my education. So they said, stay away from those machines. You in matric, you have more important things to do. How ironic was that, huh?
That is pretty ironic.
And nowadays we just live off PCs. Computers. Absolutely. Okay. All right. We really got sidetracked here. I don't know how. I think thinking of my producer matriculating in 1975 caused some confusion. Okay. Now, our next question is this. Decrease 500 kilograms by 12%. Yes. Okay. So what do we have to do? Well, I've got 500 kilograms here. Okay. Here we go. 500 kilograms. And what we're going to do is we're going to reduce it by 12%. Well, before I reduce it by 12%, I've got to know what 12% of the 500 is. Okay? So I'm going to say, let's find 12% of 500 kilograms. To find 12%, we know percent is over 100. So let's do that. We're going to take out these calculators again, if we can find it. There it is. And we're going to say, right, 500 multiplied by 12 over 100. And what do we get? We get an answer of 60. Okay? So 12% of 500 is going to equal 60. 60 what? 60 kilograms, because we're talking kilograms. So here I am. Get on the scale, fling, the needle flings up, does a few revolutions, and eventually stops to 500 kilograms. My wife says, boy, you better lose 12% of your weight. So how much weight do I have to lose? I have to lose 60 kilograms. Once I've lost 60 kilograms, what's my new weight? Well, that's easy, isn't it? All I'm going to do is say, okay, well, if I weighed 500 kilograms and I'm taking away 60 kilograms, my new mass is going to be 440 kilograms. So here I've decreased 500 kilograms by 12%. In other words, I've taken 12% of 500 and taken it away from the 500. Okay, can you see what fun we're having with all these questions? Basic, simple ones, but you know what, guys? We're going to take these basic concepts and use them next week in our paper 2. Right, next one. Calculate the following. Now we get given a calculation. Now, there's some debate as to how we mark these in matric. Some folk believe we can take the calculator and do the whole calculation in one shot and just write the answer. You know, you can do that, but I think what the Department of Education would like is for you to show them how you're getting to that final answer. So let's have a look at this. What's the first thing I'm going to do with 1.21? Am I going to do the subtraction or am I going to do the multiplication? Well, folks, it's quite simple, hey? Whenever I do bod maths, what's the first thing I always do? I always do brackets. Once I've done my brackets, I do my multiplication and my division. Once I've done multiplication and division, I then do addition and subtraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my multiplication. And I'm going to say, right, I've got 450 Rand. Let's write that here. 450 Rand minus, what's 10 times 32 Rand 40? It's going to be 324 Rand. Right, now we're going to do the subtraction. Again, this session is all about learning, so let me take out a moment or so and just teach you something quickly. Although you may be able to calculate things in your mind, folk, there's nothing wrong with double checking yourself on the calculator. So initially I said 32 Rand 40 times 10, 324 Rand. I think I'm right. But you know what? When I'm writing my exam, it's my final matric paper. I've been at school for 12 years or 13 years or 14 years, depending when I began. Our producer was telling me she was at school for 15 years and started at grade 1. You calculate that one in your mind. Okay. But I've been at school for all this time. It's not going to worry me if I just take out an extra 2 seconds of my life and check myself on a calculator, because I'm so anxious, I'm so tense, I'm so nervous when I write my exam. I don't want to make a careless mistake. So what I'm going to do is say, right, I've got 32 Rand 40 multiplied by 10, and there's my answer, 324 Rand, and I was correct. Now, finally, I'm going to then say, okay, so what's 450 Rand minus the 324 Rand? And there it is, 126 Rand. So my answer is 126 Rand. Should we carry on or should we have a break?
I think it's about time for a little break.
Okay, we'll just do one more then. All right. So 5 squared minus 30, the square root of 36. What is 5 squared? Folk, 5 squared, 25. What's the square root of 36? 6. What's 25 minus 6? 19. And remember, we would check ourselves on the calculator. We would put 5 squared, and it would give us 25. We'd put the square root of 36 and get 6. Then we'd say 25 minus 6 equals, and we'd get 19. And then we'd say, Tart, now we can have our break.
Okay. And on that note, on that extended note, make sure you guys stay tuned. Make sure you guys keep on posting on the page. Guys, I cannot stress enough. If you guys don't tell us what you guys need, we cannot help you. But for now, we'll see you after this break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. I hope you had a nice little break. You guys went and did whatever you needed to do so you don't have to get up, and so you can have all your attention focused on what you have to do right now, which is pay attention and write notes. Because right now I'm going to hand it over to Peter, who's going to continue the rest of the show. Peter, take it away.
Right, absolutely. We started the show by saying that I bought myself a dog and I called it Rolex because it was a watchdog. And that was actually quite untrue. I didn't do that at all. But what I did have was we used to have a little dog and it was run over. It was quite sad. Ooh, and they had to amputate all 4 legs. So we called it Cigarette. Do you know why? Because every night we take it out for a drag. Oh no, that's a terrible joke. Eh? That is right, guys. Let's get back to some mathematical literacy. At the beginning of the show, we started off by looking at paper 1 type questions. And what we're doing is with this paper 1, we said, unless we understand the concepts behind paper 1, we're never ever going to achieve in a paper 2. Now, odd little questions. Let's have a look at one. Find 34% of 450 kilometers. So let's do that. 34%, and before the break we said that 30% is always out of 100. So I've got 34 over 100 of means, what's the word of mean? It means times, doesn't it? So I've got 34 over 100 times 450 kilometers. So in mathematics, when I see the word of, I know it means multiply. And then with our simple little calculator, we're going to try and solve that. And we're going to say, okay, we've got 34 over 100. And we're going to multiply that now by 450. And my answer is 153. So 34% of 100 is 153. Now, folk, again, for this question, and 153 what, people? 153 kilometers, because we're finding 34% of 450 kilometers, so my answer is 153 kilometers. Got that? Do you remember I said to you sometimes the examiners help you? And in some questions they will say, round your answer off to 1 decimal place, or round your answer off to 2 decimal places. Let's look at this question. It says, find 34% of 450. There's no round your answer off to. So I expected my answer to be a whole number. Okay? And there it was. It was exactly 153 kilometers. Do you see how the examiners helped me without even realizing that they're helping me? These examiners are trying to get you through matric. Okay? They're trying to do their best for you to help you along the way. And they've got so good at it that they actually help you and they don't even know they're doing it anymore. All right. So far what we've looked at is we've looked at a whole lot of different little questions. Okay? One here, all on different topics. Now what we're going to do in the next section is we are going to look at paper 2 questions that focus on some form of context, some kind of little topic. And there's more than one question on that topic. So let's have a look at what we've got here. Okay. So here it is. I think that's it. Yeah, it's that. Right. So Mari would like to use an old recipe of her grandmother to bake coconut tarts for the school bazaar. The coconut tarts have to be baked at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. Coconut tarts, and we told they make 3 dozen. There's a reason they've told us that, hey folk. So the ingredients: 1 lb self-raising flour, 9 Oz margarine, 4 cup of sugar, 4 eggs, 10 Oz coconut, lb apricot jam, and 1 teaspoon vanilla essence. Now I know what lb means. Okay? It means pounds. I know what Oz means. Oz means ounces. But let's pretend I didn't know what that meant. Okay? Let's pretend I had no idea. And so I read it as LB. What's an LB? I don't know, but we'll call it LB. What's an Oz? Don't know, but the examiner said Oz, so there must be 9 Oz something. Okay? Even though you may not know what that is, I'm sure the examiner is going to help you later on, and you'll still be able to answer the questions. So let's read now one of the questions. Convert half an LB to grams if 1 LB is 450 grams. Or convert half a pound to grams if 1 pound, if 1 pound is 450 grams. Okay, so although I don't know what LB means, I know that one of those funny LB things is the same as 450 grams. So let's do this. How much is half going to be? Well, if 1 is 450, let's go up here. So 1 is equal to 450 grams. Half of 1 must be half of 450. So it's 450 divided by 2, which is going to be 225 grams. Okay? Can you see, although I had no idea what an LB was, I was still able to answer the question because the examiner told me that one of those funny LB things is equal to 450 grams. Okay, so if you read a question in an exam and you're thinking, I don't know what that thing is, you know what? No examiner is going to disadvantage you for not understanding something, okay? For not understanding some terminology. They're going to guide you along the way. And you didn't even have to know what an LB was to be able to answer this question. Right, next question. Convert 9 ounces or 9 Oz to grams. Okay, so we know that 1 Oz is equal to 30 grams. So 9 of them, okay, how did we get 1 to being 9? We multiplied it by 9. What are we going to do this side? We're going to say I've got 30 grams and I'm going to multiply it by 9. So with our calculator, we'd say 30 grams times 9, and we're going to land up with 270 grams. Okay? Can you see how we're asking all odd little questions, but they're all now based on the same context, okay? Context of baking, having this little recipe. All right, but we're asking you to convert different things. We're going to ask you a whole lot more questions, but it's all based on this recipe. All right, next question. 1 cup of sugar is equal to 250 mils. How many mils of sugar are needed for this recipe? So 1 cup is equal to 250 mils. How many cups of sugar did we need for our recipe? Let's have a look. Here we are, a cup of sugar. So we only want 1 cup of sugar. So if we want 1 cup of sugar, okay, we are going to need 250 mils. Sure, that's so straightforward. That's rather a silly question, isn't it? Have I read it correctly? Yeah, we need a cup of sugar, so we only need 250 mils. Right, next question. Convert 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 degrees Celsius, using the following formula. Do you remember we had to bake our biscuits for 20 minutes at 300 degrees F? Now, you've never come across F before. You've only come across degree C. So what's this degree F? Well, degree F means Fahrenheit, but we want to change it to a different unit because in South Africa, our stoves all use degrees Celsius. So let's do that. We're going to say degree C is equal to the temperature in Fahrenheit. And what's the temperature? 350 degrees. So it's 350 degrees minus 32 degrees times 5/9. So let's do that on our calculator straight away. We're going to say, okay, we've got, in brackets, 350 minus 32 close brackets multiplied by 5 over 9 equals, and there's our answer, 176,6666666. Okay, now, I knew I was going to get a horrible answer again, folk. Why did I know I was going to get a comma something, 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 something? I knew I was going to get that because my question says round off the answer to the nearest 10 degrees. So I knew my answer was going to be funny. And there it is, 176,66 degrees. Let's write that down here. Okay, 176,66666 whatever degrees. We're rounding it to the nearest 10. So it's either going to be 170 degrees or 180 degrees, because those are 10s. Now 176 is a lot closer to 180 than what it is to 170, so my answer is going to be 180 degrees. Okay, are we happy on that? Sure, that was quite an interesting one, hey? Got quite involved there. But again, even though I may not know what a little circle and an F was, by using the formula they gave me here, I could work it out. So guys, again, I'm stressing this. Although you come across something in an exam and you're thinking, my goodness, what is this? You can still answer the questions by the information that the examiner will give you later on. Cool? Let's move on. Now, my next question is this, and this is again from the 2008 paper. Nabila has moved to the city and bought her own house. She decides to compare her monthly budget to her parents' monthly budget, as illustrated in the chart below. Okay, so there are two budgets. Okay, there's the first one, and here's the second one, right? And this is her parents' budget. Okay, and I know that's there because I know the question, and for some reason it's off. And then the top one is Nabila's budget. Okay, so this is going to be Nabila's budget. Cool. So that's her parents, and that's her budget. Now let's have a look at the way they've broken that budget up. Okay, her parents spend A, which is 30% of their money on food and bond and electricity. Whereas Nabila spends 40% of her money on food, her bond, electricity. They spend 15% on insurance and medical aid. Nabila only spends 5% on insurance and medical aid. I wonder why that is. Maybe because Nabila is a lot younger and she doesn't need to spend as much money on medical aid. All right, she hasn't quite got arthritis yet, or a sore knee, or a sore elbow, or whatever the case is. In fact, my mom's sitting in Durban at the moment with bronchitis and all kinds of things. So it's great phoning her, because it's a one-way conversation, okay? You say, hello, how are you? And they just, okay, good, and how's dad? Okay, that's great. Will you send me some money? Okay, super, I'll be waiting for it. And you put the phone down, you know, it's have a wonderful conversation. But they spend a lot of money on medical aid because they're old. All right, and old people spend a lot more money on medical aid than the young, sprightly young ones like me. Okay, never get sick. I mustn't say that. I feel a cold coming on. Okay, so spends a lot less. Clothing and personal care, 10% the parents do. Look at this, Nabila. 30% of her salary goes to clothing and personal care. Sure, shows how priorities change or are different in different
men and women.
Well, not only that, just in different ages, hey, age groups. Okay. D, communication. 10%. Parents spend 10%. Nabila spends, well, we're not sure. So I almost guarantee you that there's going to be a question saying calculate how much she spends on communication. Next one, savings. The old folk spending 15% on savings. Okay? Nabila, 5%. Other, wonder what the other are, huh? 20% the parents spend on, Nabila spends 5% on her other things. Right, ready for our first question. Here we go. Do you notice, by the way, do you notice how, before even looking at the questions, I've looked at all my data and looked at it and analyzed it and studied it? Guys, that's what you should be doing in your exam as well. So often people get the exam and say, right, let's just look at the question. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Okay? But look at the data, get a full idea. You guys in matric, I think you get 5 or 10-minute reading time. Okay, so you've got 10 minutes before the exam actually starts just to go through your paper, look at it, feel relaxed, read different questions, try and analyze it, look at the data given, try and interpret a bit of it. A full 10 minutes before your 3-hour session starts. Okay, now let's have a look at one of the questions. What is it? Write down 2, and notice it is capitalized, so they definitely want 2. You give 1, you're going to lose a mark. 2 examples of monthly expenses that could be considered as other expenses. And this is where I'm going to ask Ty to help me. Okay? So we've got to say, if you look at this chart here, we have things called other. What could other be? Right. Ty, can you think of any?
Other. Because A, we already have food, bond, electricity.
That's
B,
right.
we have insurance, medical aid. C, we have clothing, personal care. D, we have communication. E, we have savings. So what could other be?
Maybe other could be like donating money towards a charity.
Possibly.
Maybe it could be things like petrol. All right. Traveling. We haven't got travel down here
Savings
at all. So it could
for
be traveling.
yeah.
No, well, not say we got saving, but traveling. Okay, so petrol, maybe putting money into your car, could be contributing money to a charity, which is always a good thing to do. I know some people give money to their church every month. That could fall under that. Okay, so other, I think we've got more than 2. Let's move on. Hey, gee whiz, we are so good, it's scary. Next one. Calculate the percentage of Nabila's monthly income that she spends on communication. Now, I knew it. I knew they'd ask me that. Why did I know they'd ask me that? Because they gave us nothing here. Right. And so we got to calculate it. Now, percentage is out of what, folk? Percentage out of 100. So let's have a look at all this. I've got 40% and 30. That makes 70%. I've got another 10% here. That's going to make 80%. Okay. I've got 5% here. That makes 85%. 100% minus 85% gives me my 15%. So that must be 15%. You see how we get that, folk? So we knew percentage was out of 100, and we took all the other percentages away, and we were finally left with 15%. Nice. Right, let's go on. We've got to go to our next page. Here we go. So now our next question is calculate the actual amount that Nabila's parents save each month. Now let's look at the question here. Okay. It says Nabila's moved to the city, she's bought her own things, blah, 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 blah. And now we've got to work out the actual amount of money that she saves each month. Now we know that Nabila saves how much? She saves 5%. Okay. Now I know, again, this has been left off, but I know the question from 2008. It said that Nabila was earning 10,000 Rand a month. Okay, so I know she was earning 10,000 Rand enough. Sadly, our producer left that off. I also know, because I know this question, that Nabila's parents were earning a total of 15,000 Rand a month between them. So if Nabila's earning 10,000 Rand, we want to know how much has she spent on her savings, or does she contribute towards her savings? We know we're finding 5% of 10,000 Rand. So let's do that. 5% we know is going to be 5 over 100 times her income, which we said was 10,000 Rand. Now, 5% of 10,000 Rand is going to be fraction button 5 over 100 multiplied by 10,000, 1, 2, 2, 3, equals, and there it is, 500 Rand. So we know she spends 500 Rand, or puts aside 500 Rand for savings every single month. Now, is it asking her parents or asking her? Let's just double check the amount of Nabila's parents. Now you see how I make a careless mistake. And I told us this before the program, eh? I said so many times, not before the program, in the beginning of the program. Before the program, I said nothing to you because you weren't watching. But in the beginning of the program, I said so many times, we say, oh, this is paper one. This is so easy. I can easily do it. And we make silly mistakes. Here I am, an old teacher. And I also made a careless mistake. So they were saying, don't work out 5% of Nabila's savings. Let's work out how much Nabila's parents save. How much do they save? They save 15%. So we're going to calculate 15% of 15,000 Rand. Let's do that here. So 15% of 15,000 Rand. What's that going to give me? Again, with my calculator, I'm going to say I've now got 15% multiplied by 15,000 equals 2,250 Rand. 2,250 Rand. Now, calculate the actual amount that Nabila spends on clothing and personal care each month. Now, we are talking about Nabila, folk. We're not talking about our parents now, right? How much does she spend on clothing and personal care? Do you remember it was quite a huge amount, C, and C was 30%. So we now want to calculate 30% of her salary. And her salary was 10,000 Rand. Okay? Equals, and again, our calculator will do that for us. We will say 30% of 10,000 Rand. And we get our answer of 3,000 Rand. Sure, that's a lot of money to spend on personal care and clothing when you only earn 10,000 Rand. I think so anyway. Eh?
That's a lot.
Okay. And that's the great thing about being a guy. Hey? You just slap on a shirt slap
jeans.
on a pair of trousers, and off you go to work. Hey? In the morning we wake up. Now listen to my day. Hey? I wake up in the morning. I make my wife tea in bed. My son gets tea in bed. Right? Then I go off and I make everybody their lunch for the day. Pack the sandwich bags, put it, and I make phenomenal lunch. I will say that, okay? We don't just have the normal peanut butter salmi. We have I don't think I was allowed to say that on here, hey, but we have peanut butter and syrup. Okay, so we have these wonderful things on our bread, okay? And sometimes cook some eggs or whatever the case is. When I've done all that, I then make them breakfast. After all that, I then go off, make sure my son dresses for school. Then I get into the bathroom, I shave, I get under the shower, I get dressed, and then I get to the door, and guess who's at the door first? Me. Okay? My wife's still getting ready. How does that work? It works because these women spend 30% of their money on all these weird and wonderful titivating things. And I always say to my wife, now how's this for a good pickup line? I always say to my wife, you've got natural beauty, dear. You don't need makeup stuff. Okay? But it doesn't help, eh? We still spend hours getting ready. I've got sidetracked. Let's move on.
Wait, but we need to actually take a break, though.
Do we?
Otherwise, if we don't, we'll be in trouble.
All right, let's take a
our little
break.
producer will come and
All right,
end
let's
us.
go.
But anyway, guys, make sure you stick around because we'll be back after this break. See you soon. So, Mindsetters, I hope you had a nice little break. Because I've got something that I just got handed to me during the break. Because, guys, I want you guys to really work hard for this. Because, guys, I've got a Maths Literacy Grade 12 Winter School book. They are available on the website, but these ones are special because they're actually ones that you can actually take with you to class. So, guys, make sure. I'm going to be giving one of these away to the best question that pops up now. I'm saying as in within this session. Because if you don't post, then you don't get one of these. I'm just saying, I would want one of these. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Peter, who's going to continue. Peter, take it away.
Absolutely. And our winter school starts shortly, doesn't it? When does it start, huh?
It actually starts for grade 11 specifically you guys need to grade 12.
Grade 12, yeah.
See, I'm losing it.
Yeah.
Grade 12, you need to pay attention specifically to the 2nd and the 6th of July, because that's when it's really important for them to make sure they tune in.
Okay, and there's a live session this Saturday,
exactly.
isn't
There's
there?
also live sessions that are going to be happening from the next couple of Saturdays, so these guys also need to make sure they tune in for that as well.
That's right. So I'll be here again this Saturday from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Live show. Hopefully you'll be able to talk to us, pose us any questions, and we'll be able to try and answer them for you. Okay. So absolutely. And those books, by the way, are phenomenal. They really are great. They've got a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of work, great answers in it as well, I think it is.
Exactly.
Well worth getting hold of one of those. Really is. And the best way to learn for any exam, I think, anyhow, is by doing past papers and by doing past examples and just going and working and working. You can't take a book and learn maths, eh? It doesn't work like that. The only way you can learn any maths, whether it's maths core, maths literacy, even physics, I think, because it involves mathematics, is to sit down and actually do the calculations yourself. Great book, well worth getting. Guys, do yourself a favor. Okay, next question. A survey of 1,000 households was undertaken during 2001 to determine how many households used various electronic appliances. A survey of the same number of households was repeated in 2007. The graph below shows the results of the two surveys. Okay, so what's this all about? Well, in 2001, people went around, knocked on people's doors and said, we'd like to know how many radios are used in your household. How many TVs are used in your household? Do you guys use video machines, DVD players? How many of you use cell phones? How many of you use a computer? Okay, so they asked all these questions. In 2007, they went back to these households and asked the people the same questions. How many DVD players do you use? How often do you use your cell phone? How many TVs are in your house and do you use, etc.? And they were able to take all this information and put it or graph it, put it in some form of graph. And this is the result that we've got here. So just by looking at that, we can see that there was an increase in the number of radios that were actually used in different households. TV sets, we had more in 2007. This is an interesting one. Look here. Video machines actually dropped down. In 2001, we had more than 50% of people that were surveyed had a video machine. However, in 2007, it dropped down to just below 30% of households now had a video machine. Why do you think that is, Ty? I think it's because we had more and more DVD players. DVDs took over from video machines. Do you remember video machines? Those funny little cassette things that would slot into this machine that had this big opening and you'd slot this thing in. And those are things of the past, aren't they? Nowadays, we've got a little disc and we call it a DVD player and we just slide this DVD in and voila, it works. So the amount of video machines or the use of video machines declined, the use of DVD players increased. Have a look at that. In 2001, there was around about 25% of households had a DVD player. However, in 2007, just under 60%. Look at the increase in cell phones. Look at that. How many people now have cell phones? Of all the households, more than 70% of households have a cell phone. Whereas before, in 2001, around just over 30%. This is what I find strange. In fact, this is what I find very scary. Let me point this out to you using a green color. Look how few households use computers. In 2001, around about 10%. In 2007, it didn't even increase by another 10%. We're looking at just over 15% of households use computers. Okay. Now, that's kind of sad because computers have so much going on for them. And our whole world revolves around computers at the moment. It shows how much further our society has to grow and has to go, actually, to get involved with computers. Okay, but enough of that. We're getting sidetracked, and according to me, we have 5 minutes and 17 seconds left. So let's have a look now at the following. Then they give us a table, and it says percentage of households using various electronic appliances. And now what's happened is this table is helping us, because this table is saying, remember earlier I said if you look at the number of DVD players, it was just over 51, and now in 2007 it's under 30. But look here, if you look here, it actually gives that figure to us. It says it's 51,2. So this applies to that graph over this. This 27,6 applies to that graph. Can you see how these figures are making life easy? Computers in 2001, 8.8%. In 2007, only 15.7%. You will know as well that I know my blue color is 2001. I know my purple color is 2007 because of this thing here, which I call a key. That's my key. So my key is telling me the blue means 2001, and the purple, I think it's purple. What color would you say? I think it's purple, is 2007. All right, so we've had a look at all that. We've tried to analyze it a little bit. Now let's look at the question. My first question says this: what was the percentage increase in usage of TV sets between 2001 and 2007? There it is there. Okay? The percentage increase, and our calculator is going to do that for us. We are going to say in 2007 we had 65.6, let's go back on that, 65.6%. In 2001 we only had 53.8%. So what was the percentage increase? It was a whopping 11.8% increase. So I had an 11.8% increase. My next question: which appliance was used in most households during both 2001 and 2007? So what this question is saying is this: which of my blue graphs are the highest? Which of my purple graphs are the highest? Let's have a look. When I look at this, I can see straight away that here my blue graph is higher. On the other hand, let's just do that here, okay, in green so you can see it. It's the highest one. My purple, it's very close between radio and cell phone. Let's confirm. Radio 76.6, cell phone 72, radio wins. So again, it's radio. So which appliance was used the most? It was the radio. And I find that very surprising. I thought it would have been cell phone or something, because cell phones have just taken over South Africa, haven't they, Tart?
True. Like you can actually listen to radio on your cell phone now.
Absolutely. Okay. But I think still way out, our older generation are scared of those cell phone things, okay, because they just follow you. It's amazing. I mean, the other day I phoned my mom, and she had her cell phone on her, all right? And I phoned her, and she said, hello. And I said, how's it, Mom? It's Pete here. And she said, hello, how are you? I said, no, I'm well. I said, where are you? She said, I'm in Pick and Pay. But how did you know you had to phone me here? Okay, shame. All right, now let's look at our next question. Which appliance showed a decrease in usage in 2007 compared to 2001? And I think we've pointed that out already, hey? The only decrease I can see is the video machine. Here, it's gone up, it's gone up, it's gone up, it's gone up. It's gone up a little bit, but it's gone up, whereas over here we've definitely had a decrease. Okay, let's move on. We got 1 minute 20, so I think we just got enough time to answer this question. How many of the 1,000 households surveyed used cell phones during 2007? So in 2007 we had 72.9%. So we've had 72.9%, so it's out of 100. We're going to multiply it by the 1,000 households that we used. And what we're going to do then is do it on our calculator and say, right, I have got 72.9%, multiply it by my 1,000 equals 729. So we know we've got 729 households used machines. Guys, our time is gone. It's up. It's finished already. But the great news is you don't have to wait till next Thursday. I'll be back on Saturday at 1:30, from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Live show, and I'll see you then. Ty, over to you.
All right. So it's a wrap of that, and that was a lot of information and a lot of stuff we had to go through. So make sure that you guys keep posting on the page, because guys need to pay attention, and make sure that you go on the page and talk to each other, and make sure guys that you keep posting, because I am going to be sending this to our winner today, and I think it's going to be you, Lindy. Hi there, you, hi Lindy. But for us, we're going to say goodbye. Take care.